Bueno, buenas noches. Y hoy llegamos a nuestra última sesión de educación financiera para jóvenes y una vez damos gracias al Departamento de Instituciones Financieras del Estado de Washington por sus siglas en inglés, el DFI, porque gracias a ellos podemos llegar cada semana, tanto para adultos como jóvenes, con esta información valiosa. Y hoy tenemos como invitado especial justo al Departamento de Instituciones, a un representante que es Natán. Y Natán, bueno, va a venir con información relacionada acerca de prevención del fraude. Bueno, voy a dejarlo a él que haga su presentación y se introduzca hacia ustedes. Voy a dejar de compartir mi pantalla.
Ok, perfecto. Muchísimas gracias, Yustine, por la oportunidad, ¿verdad? Gracias a todos ustedes que están presentes con nosotros en este momento. Em, Denme chancecito para compartir la pantalla y... eh, ok, ahí estamos. ¿Ya podemos ver?
Ya,
Ok, excelente. Bueno, el tema de hoy, ¿verdad? Se trata de las estafas. Como mencionó Justin, yo me llamo Nathan Speaker. Trabajo para el Departamento de Instituciones Financieras como coordinador de educación financiera. Ahí les voy a explicar un poquito de lo que hacemos. Pero primero, pues, una pequeña agenda, ¿verdad? Para el día de hoy. Primero la introducción, ¿verdad? ¿Quiénes somos? ¿Qué hacemos? Luego vamos a ver qué es una estafa y vamos a ver cómo identificar tres tipos de estafas. Primero son las estafas de impostores, luego vienen las estafas contra inmigrantes y luego viene el robo de identidad, ¿verdad? Así que vamos a ir uno por uno. Perdón, se me olvidó que iba a hablar inglés. Sí, es cierto. Bueno,
sí,
so first things first, we're just going to look at have an overview of what we're going to do. We're going to have a little introduction about who we are as an agency and what we do. Then we're going to learn about frauds and scams and learn what is a scam. Then we're going to look at three particular types of scams: imposter scams, scams against immigrants, and then lastly is identity theft. We're going to look at these one by one. Um, so if you have any questions during this time, please let me know. Put something in the chat, or you can feel free to unmute and ask out loud as well. Before I start, I have to read our little disclaimer. This is basically, it says that the comments and opinions expressed today are my comments and my opinions, and they don't necessarily reflect DFI, its administration, or any other person associated with the Department of Financial Institutions. Additionally, DFI cannot offer legal or financial advice, and we cannot support or recommend any person, product, or institution. So you may be wondering why that is, and that brings us into who we are and what we do at DFI. We do four things. We license, regulate, protect, and educate. We'll go through them one by one. Y por cierto, si alguien no entiende bien, pues lo que estoy diciendo en inglés, perdón, pueden hacérmelo saber y lo puedo volver a repetir en español para que todos podamos comprender. The first thing is issuing licenses. So just as we all need a driver's license to drive a car, anybody who works with money, anybody who is a financial service provider. So if you provide financial services in Washington State, you need to be licensed with our agency. So this includes banks, credit unions, check cashers and sellers, any sort of lending agency, any sort of a money transmitting service, also financial advisors, among many other things. We regulate all of these financial institutions as well, which means that we make sure that they're following the law. There are fairly rigorous laws on the books here in Washington State that are meant to protect us as we navigate the financial marketplace. So basically, we try to regulate these institutions by doing regular checkups with them, looking at their numbers, looking at their books to see that everything's in order. Our third task is to protect consumers, and by regulating these institutions, we believe that we're doing a pretty good job of that, and we really want people to have access to safe and reliable financial resources and services. And part of our work in regulation is doing just that. We take complaints from the public. If you have a complaint, you can file it on our website. It's dfi.wa.gov. These are complaints specifically about financial service providers. But based on those complaints, oftentimes we'll launch an investigation or an inquiry to see if the financial service provider is doing things by the book, or if maybe they're breaking some laws. And if they are breaking some laws, then there are several actions we can take. We can give them a fine, we can revoke their license, we can even give them a cease and desist order, which basically means that they're no longer allowed to operate in Washington state as a financial service provider. And then last but not least, we do education on personal finance topics. So presentations just like the one we're in today. And once again, I appreciate you all being here. Yeah, it's wonderful to be able to work with organizations like Leti, among many others, in promoting financial safety and financial wellness across the state. Okay, so now we've got the boring part to the side. Maybe some of you know, maybe some of us don't know, but in 2023, there were $10 billion in reported losses to fraud. That's just in 1 year, $10 billion with a B. So this is a lot of money. It's not just money, but it's also people's hopes and dreams. It's people's futures. It's people's security now and into the future. So we created a website for this fraud prevention campaign that we launched last year. The website is here on the slide. It's dfi.wa.gov/10B. So on this website, you'll learn how to identify, prevent, and report fraud if it happens to you. So if you don't listen to anything else in this presentation, pay attention to this because it's a wonderful resource that you can go back to whenever you feel like learning more. We've got a lot of information about many more types of fraud that I'm not going to be able to cover in today's presentation. So this is a wonderful resource, and we have it translated in English, Spanish, Korean, and Chinese, and I'm not sure about Vietnamese. I think Vietnamese as well, but definitely English, Spanish, Korean, and Chinese. So we've got our identify page, which has information about many different types of fraud. Then we've got our prevent portion of the website, which talks a little bit about how to prevent it. It gives some tips. Many of the tips are included in today's presentation. And then we've got the portion on reporting. Reporting fraud is really important because it helps the people who are in charge of investigating these cases to know what they're looking into, right? And it helps us as well because if we see that a lot of fraud is happening in one place and it's a specific type of fraud, then we can focus our resources and efforts in that location or on that specific topic, right? And we're able to share with more people that this sort of fraud is happening quite frequently, so you better be on the lookout for it, and here's how you can do it, right? Okay. Gracias, Karina. So Karina just put the link in the chat as well. Let's see, next slide here. What is fraud and what are scams? I would like you all to share some ideas, maybe in the chat, or you can unmute and share out loud as well if you feel comfortable. ¿Qué es una estafa? Pueden compartir sus ideas en el chat o en voz alta si quieren.
Ajá, bueno, está abierta la participación para todos. A ver qué es una estafa para ustedes. Pueden colocarlo en el chat en inglés o en español o pueden abrir sus micrófonos. A ver, miren que yo les dije a Natán que ustedes participaban mucho y yo hoy estoy quedando mal. Mm. Ah, cuando alguien te engaña, dice Iker,
Ok, cuando alguien te engaña, muy
te
bien.
engaña.
When somebody deceives you.
Ajá, a ver, Mateo, Brandon. Vale, Ben, Giovanni, Agdiel, ¿qué es para ustedes una estafa o qué creen que es para una estafa? ¿Qué se les viene a la cabeza? Ok, dice Brandon, cuando te invitan a algo que no es cierto. Ok,
Muy bien. Gracias, Brandon.
cuando te roban por engaño, dice Iker.
Siempre es sobre dinero fácil. Ah, sí.
Ajá,
Muy
bien,
buena respuesta, Brandon.
ajá,
El dinero fácil nunca es limpio, ¿verdad? Y el
ujú.
dinero limpio no es fácil. Good money, clean money is never easy, and easy money is never clean, right? Good. Ok, entonces ya vimos que pues son engaños, son mentiras, ¿verdad? Se trata de un dinero fácil. em, Te engañas en dado parecer que es demasiado bueno para dejarlo ir. It's too good to let this opportunity leave, right? To let this opportunity go. You don't want to miss out. No se lo quiere perder, ¿verdad?
Ujú.
Muy bien, gracias, Giovanni. Ok. Bueno, las estafas es cuando te piden o te sacan dinero o cosas de valor con engaño. A scam is when they ask for money or they take money or anything of value by deception through lies, right? The conditions or the factors that lead into a scam can depending on what sort of scam it is, right? But some common tactics are that, first of all, they create trust, right? They pretend to be a person or an organization that you already know and that you may already trust in, right? Then they say that there's a problem or that maybe there's a prize. Why do you all think that they use a problem or a prize? ¿Qué piensan? ¿Por qué usan esa técnica de decir que hay un problema o que hay un premio? A ver, la profe también puede opinar.
Escribiendo aquí en el chat. A ver, ¿puedes repetir la pregunta, Natán, para yo opinar aquí? Me voy a ganar yo aquí un premio yo al final.
Bien.
A ver,
Pues, ¿por qué usan esa táctica de decir que hay un problema o un premio cuando tratan de hacer una estafa?
¿por qué utilizan esa táctica de que para poder lograr engañar a las personas? Porque cuando nos dan, cuando hay un premio, fíjate como yo me interesé, ¿viste?
Ujú, ujú,
Entonces, cuando nos ofrecen algo, como que lo hacen más tentativo para nosotros. Oh, me voy a ganar algo, ¿no? Entonces la gente como que les parece más atractivo.
ujú.
Ah, ok, dice,
Bien.
porque un premio te hace
Escuchar,
escuchar, ajá,
tal vez, porque te preocupas o te hacen que te emociones. Muy bien. Y
ajá.
esa es la segunda parte. So they use the problems because it makes you worry, right? You feel like you need to do something right now to fix the problem. Or they use the prize to make you really excited. And sometimes when we're so excited, we don't really think through things as much as we should, right? Very good. Thank you for your answers. The third point here is that they pressure us to act immediately. They want us to act without thinking. They want us to do something without taking the time to evaluate if it's real or not, right? Then they tell us to pay in a specific way, right? It may be through a wire transfer, it may be through Zelle, it may be in Bitcoin or with a gift card, right? There are many different ways they try to make us send them money, but it's always a very specific way, right? And many times the way they want us to send them money is going to be a way that's very difficult for us to get that money back when we realize that it's actually a scam. Bien. Okay. We're gonna watch a little video here. The video is in Spanish, but I can give a recap of what it talks about after the video.
Por fin, Lisa se ganó la lotería. La persona que la llamó le dijo, se ganó unos cuantos millones. Ahora solo tiene que enviar $400 para cubrir los impuestos. Eduardo vendió su cámara en Internet, pero el comprador le envió un cheque por un monto superior al precio de venta. Le pidió a Eduardo que le hiciera una transferencia del dinero extra. Enrique encontró la casa perfecta en un listado de alquileres. La dueña le dijo que le enviara el depósito y que ella le enviaría las llaves de la casa. El nieto de Anita la llamó para decirle que le habían robado la billetera en Londres. Le suplicó que le enviara dinero, pero que no le dijera nada a su mamá. ¿Y qué pasó después? Pues bien, Lisa envió $400 para cobrar su premio de la lotería, pero nunca recibió sus ganancias. Ella perdió $400. Eduardo llamó a su banco. Le dijeron que era probable que el cheque fuera falso y tuvieron razón. Eduardo no depositó el cheque, no envió el dinero de vuelta y le vendió su cámara a otra persona. Enrique envió el depósito de su casa perfecta. Nunca recibió las llaves. Y cuando fue a la casa, el dueño le dijo que no estaba en alquiler. Enrique perdió su depósito. Anita llamó a su hija. Su nieto estaba en la universidad a 50 millas de su casa, no en Londres, y no era la persona que la había llamado. Tanto Eduardo como Anita sabían que antes de enviar dinero tenían que investigar. Lisa y Enrique aprendieron que en el futuro deberían hacerlo.
Okay. Uy, perdón. Oops. ¿Entendimos todos? Mateo, did you get most of it, or would you like me to do a summary?
Sí entendí. Y bueno, y de verdad que pasa mucho, ¿no? Y esa es la manera en la que ellos actúan, pues dando información falsa, haciendo pensar que hay un problema, y en muchas ocasiones hasta los adultos nos puede pasar, no solo a los jóvenes, sino hay muchos adultos que podemos caer en esas estafas y podemos dar dinero, podemos enviar tarjetas gift card, podemos hacer un depósito y después tú dices, pero ¿por qué no investigué? ¿Por qué no llamé a esa persona para confirmar si efectivamente era ella, ¿no?
Ujú.
Entonces, cuando vemos que sí pasa en la vida real y ante todo mantener la calma y confirmar con esa persona, porque hay muchas personas, hay estafas que también lo hacen de manera trágica, ¿no? Oh, está pasando. Entonces, bueno, mantener la calma ante todo y asegurarnos que esos seres queridos, porque también lo hacen con un ser querido, está bien antes de poder dar un dinero o actuar, hacer algún tipo de pago, ¿no? Y ustedes los jóvenes, pues sí, consultar con su papá, con su mamá, con un adulto que ustedes tengan cerca antes de dar cualquier información que puede ser comprometedora para ustedes y su familia también, ¿no?
Ujú. Muy bien, gracias por su aporte. Sí. Yeah, so this happens to everybody, right? Scams can happen to everybody and anybody. What we're seeing in the statistics is that people of all ages are victimized by fraud. In fact, people my age and younger get scammed more often than older people. But of course, the flip side of that is that older people generally have more money to lose than younger people, right? So they lose more money when they are scammed. Um, but yeah, the real takeaway from this video was to do your research before sending money. A lot of times they promise things that are too good to be true. Other times they use tragic situations, as Yustine was saying, to sort of take advantage of our compassion or of our desire to see other people doing well, right? And so there are many different ways they can scam us. So we're going to look at imposter scams now. The first question is, what is an imposter? An imposter is someone who pretends to be somebody else. Imposters can often pretend to be a person that we know, for example, a family member, maybe a friend, or maybe even a person that we feel like we know, but we've never actually met in person. Imposters can also pretend to be working for the government, for example, the IRS, which is they're the people that we pay our taxes to, right? Imposters can also pretend to be working for a company that we trust already, for example, a company that we already have an agreement with, maybe our electric company or the water company, right? Maybe it's a tech support company that they pretend to be, or maybe even companies that give out prize money, or even charities that oftentimes they pretend to be charities. We've seen a lot of natural disasters in the last year between hurricanes and wildfires. And whenever there are big natural disasters, there are a lot of fake charities that pop up asking for donations to supposedly support the victims of these disasters. But many times these charities are actually fake charities, and it's actually just a big scam to get people to donate money to them. So how do imposter scams work? In an imposter scam, there's a dishonest person who lies and deceives us so that we send them money. They might call us on the phone, or they might send us an email or even a text message. Many of us have gotten text messages recently saying, your package is out for delivery, but please reconfirm your address, right? Those usually are fraudulent texts. Or sometimes we get a text message saying, you owe money for the tolls, right? You drove on this highway and now you owe money. And those often tend to be scams as well. They might say that they're calling from a technical support company for an issue that your computer has. They might say that you owe money to the IRS, or that they're working for some other government agency, and those are particularly scary because nobody wants to have any trouble with the IRS. And they might say that you just won a prize, but you have to pay some sort of a fee or pay taxes to get that prize money. Or they might say they're a family member or a friend who's in some sort of a problem, in some sort of a sticky situation, and that they need your help. Or as we saw in the video, they might send you a check for more money than what you're actually owed, and then they'll tell you that you send them the difference. So that is called a check scam. And what happens there is that it takes the bank a few days to verify that there is money in the account that check came from, right? So in the time that the bank is checking that, it shows up as if you have that money in your account, right? So you deposit the check and you say, okay, well, I have the money, so I'm going to send them the difference. If they were supposed to pay me $1,000 and they paid me $2,000, I'll go ahead and send them $1,000 back, right? But what happens is when the bank discovers that it's actually a fake check, and they take the money that they had given you out of your account, right? So that $2,000 check, they take those 2,000 back out, right? And then you've already sent the money to this individual, so now you've got $1,000 less than you had before, right? Because you sent that money, and even though they lied to you, you still sent it willingly. So unfortunately, in these cases, the bank will not give you your money back. They're all tricks and lies. If you pay with a gift card or if you transfer money, the scammer will keep that money and you will not get your money back. Paying with a gift card or doing a money transfer, whether it's through Zelle or Venmo or Cash App, or whether through a regular wire transfer, is basically the same as giving that individual money in cash, right? When we pay people with gift cards or with these money transfers, we're not able to recover that money because it's what's called an authorized transaction. We did that freely and willingly. Of course, they lied to us, but at the end of the day, we weren't forced to do it, right? So unfortunately, that works out against us, really. So how can I avoid imposter scams? First of all, take a breather, take a break, a little pause. Taking some time can help us sort of think through things, right? It can help us evaluate whether something's true or not true. Oftentimes, when we're forced to do something very quickly, we don't have time to think through things, right? We don't have time to really evaluate and contemplate whether this is real or not, right? Especially if they tell us there's a big problem, right? None of us want to be in trouble. None of us want to create problems and make our life more complicated. So oftentimes we want to do whatever we can to get out of this problem, right? The second step is to do some research, right? So maybe do a Google search. If you get a text message, maybe you can copy and paste the text message into your Google search and see what other people have said online, right? What I do oftentimes is if I'm not sure about a company or a product, I'll Google it and then put scam on the end of my search, right? And that way I can see if there are a lot of people who have reported scams about that company or about that person, right? Number 3 is going to be do not pay people with gift cards, right? If I buy a McDonald's gift card, I can't go to Walmart and use that McDonald's gift card to pay for my groceries, right? If I buy a Walmart gift card, I can't go to GameStop and buy a game with my Walmart gift card, right? Gift cards are for buying things at that specific business and only at that specific business, right? And we can't pay taxes with a gift card. We can't pay a fine with a gift card. We ought not to pay people with gift cards either, right? And they use gift cards because they are very difficult to track, right? As soon as we've sent them that information, we can't take that back because we've already paid for it. Number 4 is do not send money to people you don't know, right? That's a good rule of thumb. It's good advice regardless, right? It's not really a good idea to send money to people we don't know. In fact, I was scammed when I was in college through a scheme like this. I wanted to buy a new phone. I got an email about a phone that somebody was selling, and they said, "Yeah, sure, we'll send you this phone in the mail. Just go to Western Union. Here's the information. Send us $250, blah, blah, blah," right? And I wasn't so sure about it, but then they started using all these tactics to pressure me. They said, "Oh, well, you better buy it now because I've got many other people who are asking about it, right? So if you don't buy it, somebody else will, and then this deal won't be available for you, right? Because it's a one-time offer." Or then they'll say, "Well, you're making us nervous. What's going on? Please let us know if we can do anything to make you feel better about this deal." Blah, blah, blah. All of these psychological techniques to sort of trick me into sending the money. At the end of the day, I walked over to the Walgreens and I sent that money with Western Union and I never got the phone, right? And as soon as I sent the money, I had this feeling in my stomach like, oh man, I think I just messed up, right? And basically, yeah, I did mess up and I lost those $250 and did not get the phone. But through that, I was able to learn that, it's not a good idea to send money to people we don't know, right? Especially if they're telling us we're going to send it, we're going to send you the product later, right? Now, of course, it's very different if we're buying something on eBay or on Amazon, right? These are companies that have a little bit more security around them, and they have a way that you can file a complaint and potentially get that money back, right? But that's on these platforms that are already built up like that, right? And then number 5 about how to avoid imposter scams is do not share personal information, right? So personal information includes our name, our address, phone number, any bank information, right? Any personal information, including passwords. Obviously, passwords, I think most of us are smart enough to not share our passwords, right? But people can use this information to target us for more scams, right? And in some cases, as we're going to see towards the end of this presentation, they can even use our identity to buy things, right? So we want to avoid that. Okay, and what happens if I already sent money to somebody that I don't know? Well, if this happened to you, please do report it to the Federal Trade Commission, that's FTC. You can call them at 1-877-382-4357, or you can file a complaint online at ftc.gov/complaint. FTC uses all of our complaints to work on their cases against scammers, and all of the information that we're able to provide to them is helpful to the investigators who are doing these investigations. You can also report it to the Attorney General's office here in Washington. Their website is atg.wa.gov. They also investigate scams and frauds, and because they're a little bit more local, they may be able to give you some more pointers here in the state of Washington in terms of what sort of fraud they're seeing locally as well. Okay, so that's imposter scams. Do we have any questions about imposter scams? ¿Alguna pregunta de la estafa de impostores? Si no, no hay problema.
No, yo solamente pues quería ver, no, qué bueno que hay una manera donde los podamos reportar, ¿no? Por lo menos para que empiecen a investigar y bueno, ya si hay varias personas que colocan un mismo reporte hacia a una misma persona, un mismo método, qué sé yo, de estafa, ya pues es más fácil poder como que llegar a ellos.
Ujú.
Esperemos, ¿no? Que se pueda.
Correcto. Yeah, the more people that file complaints, the easier it is to get to these scammers, right? And the for the most part, when if you are affected by a type of scam, it's very likely that other people have also been affected by these types of scams. Okay. Gracias, Iker. Then we have scams against immigrants. Scams against immigrants. That's our next section. So what are these scams that are targeted at immigrants? So people who are migrating to the United States may have heard about many types of scams. Some of them include websites that look like government websites, but that aren't actually US government websites. Others are people that charge you money for government forms and questionnaires that are actually available for free online. And then there are also individuals called notaries who they charge you fees, but in reality, they can't give you legal advice or legal help. These scams actually cost more than just money. These scams can impact our ability to legally immigrate or to gain residency or gain citizenship here in the United States, right? So it's more than just the money, it's about the opportunity to become legalized here in the US. And in this context that we're in, it's even more important to make sure that we're working with trustworthy people, right? So what is a notary? A notary public. In the US, in the United States, notaries or notary publics are not lawyers. They cannot help us with immigration issues. They don't have the legal training and they don't have the background or the authority to help us legally. And basically, what a notary does is that they are sort of a certified witness to make a document more formal, let's say, to put it very simply, right? They can sign a document saying that, well, these two people signed this document in front of me and I'm witness to that, right? But they can't really give legal advice. Some may tell you that they can help you with your immigration paperwork or with your immigration process, but that you have to pay them. But in reality, they cannot help with legal processes. And in some cases, a notary can even ruin our opportunity to get our residency or to become a US citizen. So I'm not saying that notaries are scammers, but in this context related to immigration, they do not have the legal authority to help us with the legal case of immigration, right? So who can help me with my immigration issues? First of all, are lawyers, right? And then second of all, come accredited representatives. So the US government has authorized some individuals through trainings, right? And these individuals can help us with our immigration paperwork and with our processes. An accredited representative does not have to be a lawyer, but they can still give you legal advice on immigration. And this is because they have, once again, received training from the government to be able to speak about this and to be able to give advice on legal cases related to immigration, right? Family members and people we know can help us write or maybe translate some of our forms, but they shouldn't really be giving us legal advice, right? And they certainly should not be asking for payment for that help, right? So how can I get help with my immigration case? You can get the immigration forms for free at uscis.gov/forms. You can also call USCIS at their number, which is here on the screen. And you can also visit ftc.gov/immigration for more information on immigration scams. There are also lawyers available to help. Of course, lawyers can oftentimes charge a good bit of money, right? But for many people, that might be the best bet, right? So that they can get good information from somebody who really knows what they're doing and knows what the entire process is. My wife and I, we've been in this immigration process for a little while now, and it is quite complicated. It's quite a headache as well. It takes a long time and we have to be patient. And sometimes it can be easier to put that in the hands of a lawyer who will take care of everything for us, right? In our case, we decided to go about it ourselves, and for better or for worse, we're still here waiting, so we hope that things get resolved soon. But yeah, I just wanted to share that personal experience as well. So we have another video coming up here, and this one is on immigration scams. Once again, it's in Spanish, but I'll give a quick recap after the video. But basically, it goes through what we've already seen in the past couple of slides.
Andrés estaba buscando ayuda para conseguir una visa para su esposa Eva. Vio un anuncio en el periódico local publicado por un agente de viajes que hacía trámites de inmigración. Cuando Andrés la llamó, la agente le prometió que podría ayudarlo. Ella quería el certificado de nacimiento de Eva, algunos otros papeles y dinero por sus servicios. Andrés y Eva le dieron todo lo que les pedía y esperaron. Y esperaron. Cuando la llamaron, no respondió. Y siempre estaba muy ocupada para verlos. Finalmente, Andrés habló con un abogado. Él descubrió que el tipo de consultor de inmigración al que había recurrido no podía ayudarlo legalmente con sus trámites de inmigración. De hecho, a veces solo complican más las cosas. El abogado logró recuperar los papeles de Eva antes que la consultora los entregara. Andrés y Eva tuvieron suerte. Al final, solamente perdieron algo de dinero, pero no perdieron la oportunidad de inmigrar de Eva. Eva todavía tenía tiempo para presentar la solicitud de su visa y encontraron un abogado que sí podía ayudarlos. Pero Andrés estaba muy arrepentido de haber tirado su dinero.
So in this video, we saw the case of Andres, who he saw an ad in the newspaper for a travel agent who said they could help with his wife's immigration case. So he sent the travel agent his wife's documents as well as payment. But after several months of waiting and not being able to get in contact with this individual, he then spoke to a lawyer who told him that, in fact, this person did not have authorization to work on the immigration case, right? So the lawyer was able to recover the documents, but unfortunately the money was gone, right? That stayed with the travel agent. But they were thankful that they were able to get the situation resolved and that all they lost was a little bit of money as opposed to the entire possibility of being able to migrate here to the United States. So this next slide talks about how can I avoid scams in the immigration process. So once again, we're going to say that do not pay for immigration forms. These forms are available for free online at uscis.gov. You can download them and print them out at your library or at home, and they are free once again. The second piece of advice here is seeking for help on websites that are from the US government. Make sure that the website ends in .gov, right? This means that it is an official government website. And nowadays, many government websites have a little banner on top with a little flag that says, this is an official US government website. Here's how you can tell, right? So make sure it has that. And number 3 is do not go to a notary or a notary public for legal assistance or advice. In the US, notaries are not lawyers. In many other countries, notaries and lawyers may be the same thing, or all notaries are lawyers, right? But that is not the case here in the US, and they cannot give legal help. They can't provide that. Some more tips here on avoiding immigration-related fraud. We want to avoid signing a blank form, right? Because we never know what people are going to fill in on that form. It may be incorrect information. So we want to make sure that the form has been filled out before we sign it. Second, we never want to sign a form that has false information, right? That can seriously slow down the process at best and maybe even make you lose the chance to migrate legally at worst. In my case, I was living in Central America for a few years, and we were doing my wife's visa paperwork. And I was so used to writing the date like they do down there, where it's day, month, year, right? So when I filled out the paperwork for my wife, I wrote my birthday backwards, right? Because here we do month, day, year. But I wrote day, month, year. So then I had to go through this whole process to try to get that corrected because I had written it incorrectly the first time. And it was a major headache for something so simple as a birthday. Second, we want to save copies of all of the documents that we send in. Ideally, we don't really want to send in original copies of the documents. Generally, we want to send in photocopies, right? And we also want to save copies of all of the letters rather that we get from the US government. We don't want to allow anybody to keep our original documents like our passport or our birth certificate. In many cases, if we apply, for example, for residency and we send in the original documents, and at the end of the day, if they decide to deny us the residency, then they destroy all of the files that we've sent in. So that's why it's very important to send in copies instead of the originals, right? Because if they happen to deny your case or reject your case, then your original documents may be destroyed, right? So we want to avoid that. And then lastly, when we file forms with USCIS, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, they send us a receipt notice. We want to make sure that we save this receipt notice, that we keep it somewhere safe, because we're going to need it to check up on the status of our case, right? It's very important to keep all of these documents that we've sent to the government and that we've received from them. So once again, if we have already paid somebody that didn't help us, we can report these to the Federal Trade Commission. Immigration scams are illegal, so it is really important that we do report this. Once again, you can also report this to the Attorney General's office here in Washington. Okay, any questions about immigration scam before we go on to identity theft? ¿Alguna pregunta con la estafa de migración?
Pueden colocar en el chat, pueden abrir sus micrófonos. Emiliano dice que no.
Okay.
Dice
Okay.
Giovanni que no, todos están...
Okay, pues hice un buen trabajo entonces. Good deal. All right. Identity theft. What is identity theft? Identity theft is when somebody uses my information or your information without our authorization, without our permission, right? Identity thieves can use our name and address. They can use our bank account numbers or our credit card numbers. In some cases, they may be able to get our social security number and use that, right? Or they can even get our driver's license or health insurance numbers. So all of this is categorized as personal identifying information. What can they do with our personal information? An identity thief can use our name and our information to buy things with our credit cards, for example. This happened to my uncle. An identity thief stole their credit card and was able to buy some $15,000 of stuff with their credit card. And they had to go through a whole process to get that money reimbursed. In some cases, they can open new credit cards in our name. They can sometimes open phone lines or electric or gas lines in our names. They can even steal our tax return. That's particularly scary nowadays, right now, since we're in the middle of tax season. And in some cases, they can even get healthcare in by using our information or even pretend to be us if they are arrested, right? But why should I care? Why should I be worried if somebody steals my identity? The unfortunate thing with identity theft is that we are responsible for what the identity thief does while they're using our personal information. It may be that we have to pay for what the thief bought, even if we don't know anything about the bills, even if we've never seen the bills. So how can it happen? How does this identity theft happen? An identity thief may be able to open up a credit card using my name and my personal information. Then the thief changes the address on file so that the bills go straight to the identity thief and not to me, right? That way I have no idea that they have a credit card open in my name. Now, the identity thief, of course, he's not going to pay for the products that he bought with my stolen credit card, right? That defeats the whole purpose. So that means that the credit card company thinks that I am not paying my bills, right? And that damages my credit. You may have talked about credit earlier in this series, about credit cards and all of that. So we know that not paying our bills, not paying our credit card bills hurts our credit score, right? It's a really big factor. Now, the downside here is that until I'm able to report that my identity has been stolen, the only people who know that are me and the identity thief, right? The bank has no idea, the police has no idea, the government has no idea, right? So we're on the hook for it, we're responsible for it until we can prove that we did not do this, right? Here's another video. Trying to spice it up with some videos every here and then, just so you don't get tired of my voice. I'll provide a brief summary here in a moment once we finish this video.
A Linda no le preocupaba el robo de identidad. Siempre decía, ¿a quién le interesaría robar mi identidad? Linda nunca tuvo una tarjeta de crédito y nunca pidió dinero prestado. Pensaba que los ladrones de identidad no molestarían a alguien que no tuviera un historial de crédito. Un día, Linda decidió solicitar una tarjeta de crédito. Presentó su solicitud. pero la compañía se la rechazó. Linda quería saber qué había pasado. ¿Por qué no le dieron la tarjeta de crédito? Para averiguar la razón, consiguió una copia gratis de su informe de crédito. Fue entonces que Linda descubrió que alguien sacó 8 tarjetas de crédito usando su nombre. Hasta sacaron un préstamo para un auto. Y quien quiera que sea que usó su nombre no estaba pagando las facturas. Linda trató de corregir estos errores, pero se dio cuenta que no es fácil probar que no hiciste algo. Los negocios responsabilizaron a Linda por las facturas, hasta que ella comprobó que las facturas eran de un ladrón de identidad. Tomó mucho tiempo, pero logró solucionar el problema. Ahora, Linda revisa su informe de crédito cada año para ver si hay señales de robo de identidad.
Okay. So in this video, Linda's identity was stolen. She thought, who would be interested in stealing the identity of somebody who has no credit history? Well, one day when she went to apply for a credit card, she was rejected. And when she went to check her credit report to see why she was rejected, she found out that an identity thief had stolen her identity and had opened up 8 credit cards in her name and had even taken out a car loan in her name. Now, the companies that the credit cards were from and the car loan, they held Linda responsible for all of these, right? And it wasn't until she was able to prove that she didn't do it that they were able to get rid of this, right? So, but it is quite difficult to prove that you didn't do something, right? Especially when it is related to money and credit. So now Linda checks her credit report regularly on annualcreditreport.com to make sure that there are no lines of credit open that she has not approved. So how can people steal our identity? They may steal our mail or rummage through our garbage can to see if they can get account numbers from us or our social security number. They may deceive us or trick us so that we send them personal information by email. They may steal our account numbers at a business or at a medical clinic, or they might even steal our wallet or our purse to get our personal information. So there are many different ways people can steal our identity. How can I know if somebody stole my identity? First of all, we want to read all of our bills, right? Do we see a charge that we don't recognize? Maybe a charge for something that we didn't buy? That's a big warning sign right there. We should check our account statements as well on our bank accounts. Are there any withdrawals that we don't recognize? Are there any big changes that we don't expect? Thirdly, we should be paying attention to our mail. Did we suddenly stop receiving a bill? Or did we suddenly start receiving a bill that we didn't know anything about? Those are both big warning signs, right? I don't think that our phone company is going to suddenly stop sending us a bill for our phone service, right? They're probably not going to be that generous. So if we stop receiving bills or if we start receiving new bills that we don't recognize, those are warning signs. And then finally, we ought to get our credit report and review it. Are there any accounts or information there on our credit report that we don't recognize? If so, that may be a warning sign, right? We should dispute that. Now, you may have already seen this in your credit workshop, but a credit report basically is a summary of our credit history. On there, we can see our name, address and social security number. We can see our credit cards, we can see our loans, we see how much money we owe in total, and we see if we're paying our bills on time or if we're paying them late. All of the information on our credit report should be our information. And if there is any information that you don't recognize or that is incorrect, we have to correct it, right? Because otherwise we are on the hook for it. There was a case, I did this presentation a little while ago, and there was a case of a young lady who had applied for a credit card and she was denied. And when she checked her credit report, it showed that she had student loans, when in fact she did not have student loans, right? And student loans, that's a big chunk of money that we owe, right? So what had happened is that this young lady and her sister had very similar names, right? So apparently her sister's student loans got reported on the wrong person's credit report, right? So she had her sister's student loans on her credit report, and that's why she was rejected for getting a credit card, right? Maybe you might have the same name as your father or your mother, and maybe some of their information is on your credit report. That doesn't necessarily mean that your identity has been stolen, but it is still incorrect information, and you need to dispute that with the credit bureaus to try to get that corrected. How can I protect my identity? When we are at home, we want to, well, everywhere we go, we want to protect our personal information, right? So when we're at home, we want to keep safe our financial statements and financial information, our Social Security cards and Medicare cards, or health insurance cards in a safe place, right? Ideally, we want to be able to cross-cut, shred, or burn any paper that has personal information or medical information. And if we have a mailbox that's out on the street, that's open, so where anybody can open it, right? We want to be able to take out our mail as soon as possible, right? When we are dealing with a business, we want to avoid giving out our Social Security number. Really save that for when it's absolutely necessary, and ask if they'll be able to use a different type of identification. Do not give personal information to a person who calls you or who writes you an email. We don't want to give out that personal information over phone or email or text message, right? On the computer, we want to be sure we're using passwords that are difficult to guess. We want to use numbers and symbols when we're able to. We want to avoid responding to emails or other messages asking for personal information. And of course, we want to avoid putting personal information on computers that are in public spaces. For example, the library or at school, right? Don't put your personal information in there. Don't check your accounts on there. Use your phone or your personal laptop or whatever you have that is yours and not accessible to the public. What can I do if somebody steals my identity? First of all, we want to call the companies where there was fraud, right? If somebody opened a credit card in your name, call that credit card company. Explain that somebody stole your identity and ask that they close or freeze your accounts. After that, we want to change our passwords and our personal identification numbers, our PIN. Then we want to go to identitytheft.gov or call 1-877-438-4338. This website, identitytheft.gov, is a wonderful resource for us because all we have to do is answer a few questions about what happened, and they will create an action plan that is created just for our situation. We can also create an account on this website on identitytheft.gov. It's a federal agency website that looks at identity theft and tries to combat it, right? And when we create an account on this website, we're able to follow up on all of the different steps that we need to take to recover our identity. And we can sort of do this follow-up and see how our process is going as well when we create our account. And this next video is going to talk all about these action plans and identitytheft.gov.
Cuando Tomás recibió el resumen de su tarjeta de crédito, no se preocupó. Por fin había pagado toda la factura, así que sabía que no debía nada. Pero cuando Tomás miró su resumen de cuenta, encontró miles de dólares por cargos que no reconocía. Alguien le había robado su identidad. Así que Tomás se puso a trabajar en el tema. Llamó de inmediato a la compañía de su tarjeta de crédito. Luego, visitó robodeidentidad.gov para averiguar qué más tenía que hacer. Primero, Tomás respondió algunas preguntas sobre lo que le había sucedido. Dio información sobre el delito y su nombre y domicilio. Sobre la base de su información, Tomás recibió un plan de acción para ayudarlo a solucionar los problemas causados por el robo de identidad. El plan le indicaba que tenía que colocar una alerta de fraude en su informe de crédito y conseguir una copia gratis de su informe de crédito en annualcreditreport.com. Y como Tomás creó una cuenta gratis en robodeidentidad.gov, recibió aún más ayuda. Obtuvo una carta personalizada que podía enviar a la compañía de tarjeta de crédito para pedir que resolvieran los problemas. Y el sitio web lo ayudó a llevar un seguimiento de sus pasos de recuperación. Tomás tenía que hacer más cosas para frenar el daño que le había causado el ladrón de identidad. Pero como actuó tan rápido al principio, al final todo salió bien.
Okay, good deal. So in this video or example, Tomas was a victim of identity theft, and he created an account on identitytheft.gov, and they were able to help him solve it and gave him all of the steps to be able to recover his identity. A few key points there were placing a fraud alert on your credit reports, right? And then also this website is able to give you personalized letters that you can send to any of the companies where there was fraud. Okay, no pasa nada, Abdiel, gracias. So by creating this account, he was able to stay on top of things and follow the progress and also get the help that he needed. Okay, so that is just about it with today's presentation. I don't have anything more to go over, but if you have any questions, now's the time to ask these questions. There's no such thing as a wrong question, right? So let me know, what do you all think? Have you all ever experienced scams before? Share your stories if you'd like.
Gracias, Natán. A ver si alguien tiene que compartir o tiene alguna pregunta para Natán acerca de lo que hemos visto, o si ustedes han sido víctimas de alguna estafa o han recibido em, de repente algún correo con información, algún mensaje, coloquen acá información. Ustedes han pues tenido ese tipo de problemas, pues pueden compartir.
So Mateo asks, what happens if you share your social security number to a scammer? What happens is you're in big trouble. They could use your information to create a new driver's license, to take out loans in your name. And as I said earlier, at the end of the day, you will be responsible for what they do with your information, right? Until you're able to prove that it wasn't you. So if you do give your social security number to a scammer, probably the best thing you can do is to put a freeze on your credit. So to do that, you have to call the credit reporting agencies. There are 3 credit reporting agencies: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, right? You need to call all 3 of them and request a credit freeze. And basically what this does is it prevents you or anybody else from opening up new credit in your name, right? That's a good piece of advice for everybody, because nowadays there have been so many hacks and data breaches that many of our social security numbers are out there on the dark web, right? And scammers and hackers can buy those and use that to create a lot of problems for us. So the credit freeze is going to be really, really important. And you can also put a fraud alert on your credit report as well. Good question. Thank you, Mateo. Eden says, mis papás estaban intentando de comprar una casa y nos hicieron una scam. So his parents were trying to buy a house and they scammed them. Yeah, that can happen as well, right? So it's really important that we're working with people who are properly licensed, right? You can check licenses for mortgage lenders on our website, dfi.wa.gov. It's really important we make sure the people who are reaching out to us are legit and doing our research ahead of time, right? Because it can end up costing us a lot of money. Iker dice, yo recibí un mensaje que me llegó un paquete, pero que necesitaba dar mi dirección porque no la tenían correcta, pero como no había pedido ningún paquete, no hice caso. Muy bien, ya. Esos mensajes son muy comunes hoy en día. These sorts of messages about, oh, well, you got a package, but you need to confirm your address, right? And those are definitely scams. In this case, Iker knew that they hadn't ordered a package in the first place, so they didn't pay any attention to it. But sometimes we have ordered a package and we might be confused and think that that's the one that they're talking about, right? So if we get an email or a text message like that, it's always best to go to the website where we ordered it and check the order status on that website, right? Don't trust what they tell you in the text message. Don't press on the links. Don't share your information, right? Go right back to the source, or you can call them, call the company. For example, if you order something off of Amazon and you get a text message like that, you can go on your account and see what the order status is, or you can call Amazon and ask about it, right? The same is true for your bank. If you get a text message or a call from your bank, don't respond to it, hang up on the phone call, and call the number that's on the back of your credit card or your debit card, right? And talk to the bank directly. Because oftentimes they'll pretend to be, once again, the imposter scam. They'll pretend to be your bank and they'll want to get information from you, right? And because it's somebody or a company that we already trust, maybe we're willing to give that information out, but we shouldn't trust it.
Bueno, habíamos tenido una pregunta para Natán. Mientras les voy a pedir si pueden encender su cámara, los que puedan, para que Karina nos tome la foto del día de hoy. Hoy es nuestra última sesión para los jóvenes. Bueno, les quiero dar las gracias porque estuvieron aquí 4 semanas educándose y aprendiendo algo bien interesante para todos, que es cómo comenzar a dominar nuestro dinero, nuestras finanzas desde bien jóvenes, ¿no? A ver, ¿quién más quiere prender su cámara? Gracias, Emiliano. Gracias, Mateo, por encenderlas. Ok, no pasa nada, Eden. Ok, bueno, Karina nos avisa. Bueno, Eden allí colocó su mejor sonrisa. Ok, estamos listos. ¿Alguien más tiene alguna pregunta antes de finalizar? Con esto, Karina puede colocar en esto la grabación.